Hello, everyone. Welcome to another fabulous Monday, a marvelous Monday, if you will, a marvelous movie Monday. We are actually talking about a movie. We are back, the first MCU film since last summer. We had Craven, but like this is the last MCU movie since Deadpool and Wolverine, which is oh no, wait,
Captain America.
I'm so sorry.
The Captain America Brave New World erasure is already
Listen,
happening.
listen. Well, I was gonna say it goes to show how much of an impression that made. Okay, never
Right,
mind.
right.
We're back after a few months. Kelsey, how you doing? We're talking about Thunderbolts asterisk today. That asterisk we learned did mean something, which we will not say now. We're gonna have a spoiler
Yeah.
section at the end, so don't fret. You're welcome. You can come in. We'll talk a little, and then we'll push you out. But Kelsey, how you doing after seeing Thunderbolts asterisk?
I'm doing really well. I really enjoyed this film, so I'm really excited to talk about it.
Okay.
It feels good when you come into this feeling pretty happy about what you saw
Yeah.
and having a lot of positives to talk about rather than a lot of negatives. So I'm feeling
Right.
in good spirits today.
Yeah, usually where we start with the well, this was good, but now let's get to the movie. Whereas I feel like this
Yeah.
could be a little bit more of like it was all really good, but like there are some nitpicks type deal. I
Mhm.
think you like it a
Mhm.
lot more than I do. I still am
Okay.
kind of in the rut of like I don't know. It just didn't like wow me. I think that's the thing is the movie is
Okay.
not designed to do that either. But I appreciate that. I appreciate that like the stakes were still big, but in a small scale. Um,
Yeah.
which usually in these big team up movies, especially like the big battle is so climactic, so huge. Usually takes place in space, or there's a big like time vortex or whatever or wormhole or whatever, and this has
Yeah.
like a big final set piece, but it is still driven by such like intense personal intimate emotional stakes that it was refreshing to just see this type of movie nowadays in Marvel, which is I think the most refreshing part about it, even though I'm still not like wow, I'm not like I haven't had a reaction to a movie post Endgame except for Guardians 3 in terms of leaving the theater being like, "Oh my god." And I still am
Mhm.
waiting for that, and I still haven't gotten that. But I'm also not going to necessarily hold that against this film, more so the MCU in general, because this film I think does more interesting things than a lot of other MCU films, if you know what I mean. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I will say one of my notes is that it definitely does lack in like some of the very stereotypical MCU things that we've expected from these movies, which I don't necessarily think is a bad thing because
No.
this film kind of really beats to the rhythm of its own drum or whatever that expression is, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, like I mean we're still getting the comedy that feels at times a little bit forced, but I also
Sure.
think just the characters they're assembling are inherently kind of sarcastic, dry, witty people. And I think that's the thing that works so well with Guardians is that you have all these people together, but they're not going for the jokes. They're just naturally funny people. And I feel like
Yeah.
sometimes in some of the Avengers movies like Thor, I feel like they tried as each Thor film went on, trying to force him to be funnier and funnier than he was. Whereas from the get
Mhm.
go, like Drax was always Drax, and I feel like that's the same with like Red Guardian, where it's like he's not just forcing humor. This is just who he is as a character,
Yeah.
and by being himself. And because you don't have like Bucky and even like Ghost cracking jokes or Taskmaster cracking jokes in this movie because that's just not who they are. But
Mhm.
like the characters who are funny are just inherently funny. Yelena's a little sarcastic. Red Guardian's funny. So I think Valentina, she's very funny and dry and
Yeah.
witty. So I think it's one of those things where just they're not going for the humor with characters that aren't funny. They're going for humor because these characters are just naturally funny, which makes it feel better than even like the Deadpool movies where I feel like they're going so hard for the humor at times and
Mhm.
it doesn't always
Mhm.
feel natural.
Yeah.
It feels a little put on. I didn't feel it was put on the humor. And that is really the most MCU stuff we get in this movie because everything else, the fighting style, just the overall locations and the lack thereof, like they stayed pretty much in one city the whole time. The villain
Yeah.
arc, like all of that feels so unique and not like any other MCU in a while, which I like.
Yeah.
Even Captain America, which you'd think would be more grounded, still became something so big and bold and CGI fest. Also, like I feel like
Mhm.
this is so much more driven in groundedness, which is a good thing. I agree. I agree.
Yeah. Yeah. And it kind of like all ties back to like a line that I think it's in the trailer, but
Mm,
it doesn't really spoil anything. It's just like
right.
Yelena like looks around at the group and is like, okay, so none of us fly. Like we're all just like point and shoot, like kind of very like, very combat heavy type of like people. And I'm like, yeah, like for a second you think, how is this going to work? Because there's not a
Mhm.
ton of, you think that there's wouldn't be a ton of diversity between all of them because they all are the same kind of like brooding, sarcastic anti-hero. But then at the end of the day, like it's kind of beautiful in a way to like watch these like misfits, like losers at one point they refer to themselves as, like come together and like start working together to achieve a common goal.
Yeah. And it's refreshing too, and I'm not gonna spoil exactly what happens, but there's a fight between the Thunderbolts and the main villain where they all essentially lose. I mean, no one like
Hmm.
dies in that fight because it's not the final fight, but they all take on the
Yeah.
villain and each one gets like beat down. And it's
Yeah.
kind of refreshing because you don't get that in a lot of MCU movies. The closest one is Infinity War. And even then, like Thor got that blow on Thanos, he just didn't go for the head. Like there were still
Right.
big casualties on both sides. This felt like, oh, like this is a ragtag team, meaning like they are vulnerable as well. And I think that's something with the MCU that the more we get evolved into like space and these like bigger beings. I mean, this is a problem DC has. When you have Superman, it's like kryptonite's the only thing that can defeat him. So if there's no kryptonite around, there's no stakes because you know he's going to
Hmm.
be okay. And I kind of felt that about
Hmm.
one character in this movie, which we'll get to when we get into spoilers. But it's refreshing that most of these characters are so grounded that like they can die very easily. They don't have even the super soldiers amongst the group, which we have three in this group. They're not invincible. And I think that's refreshing. I think that adds a layer
Hmm.
that you don't even get with like Guardians, even like because like Nebula's a robot. So like you could probably put her back together. Like certain things
Yeah.
that I feel like Vision, it was always gonna be like, how are you ever gonna kill off Vision? And they found the one way you could kill off Vision in the MCU. They did, but it's one of those things where I really do think like a lot of characters in the MCU now are invincible. This was the Secret Invasion problem of like you make a character that's all this powerful, you can't use her in anything else because like what is her weakness? And I think Captain Marvel even had a similar issue too, to where a lot of these
Hmm.
characters' weaknesses are now like emotional weaknesses where it's like you have to talk
Yeah.
them down. And I think we get a little bit of that in this movie too. But it's also it's refreshing that the characters are always vulnerable, which I think we don't get in a lot of MCU films, which made it I think
Hmm.
the action in this film more exciting because we're like anyone could go at any time. And we even established that with a few moments early on in the film. Like anyone could die at any moment. As
Yeah.
was also seen with Suicide Squad, which is kind of what this feels like. Like it feels like Marvel's version of Suicide Squad is what
Hmm.
Thunderbolts is at least trying to be, just without the hard R edge, which I don't think you needed, but also maybe would have
Yeah.
made it a little bit better. But I don't know.
Yeah, I was wondering what this movie was even rated as I was watching it, Dill, because I don't know, I was expecting an F-bomb somewhere.
Hmm.
I really was. And I think that they even still could have done it with the PG-13. I think they could have done one,
Yeah.
but I just felt like one of these characters should have said fuck at some point during this movie.
Yeah, because they're all that character in their own movies. Yelena. If someone's gonna curse in Black Widow, it's gonna be Yelena. If someone's gonna
Yeah.
curse in the Falcon and Winter Soldier show, it's gonna be John Walker. If someone's gonna curse in Ant Man, it's gonna be Ghost. Like you're getting
Yeah.
like the naughtiest person in each movie, not necessarily the villainous person in each movie, but you're
Yeah.
getting like kind of the angsty, rebellious one of each movie, and you get Red Guardian with Yelena in this one too. But even then, like they have an interesting dynamic where I could see him being like, "What the fuck, Yelena?" So I don't
Yeah.
know. I also agree. I think if this had an R rating, you don't need to go for it in the violence necessarily because I think you still get like good enough violence and there's like bone
Yeah.
breaking and snapping. But like
Uh-huh.
I think the language, yeah, like this is a team that would fuck around with each other and say it's one of those things where you're just like this doesn't feel realistic in that sense.
Yeah.
But it's not the
Yeah.
biggest deal. But I agree. I think an R rating would have probably given it a little bit extra oomph and maybe made it feel a little bit more not memorable, but I don't know, because that's the thing. Is like I'm worried 10 years from now, I'll look back at it and be like, oh yeah, Thunderbolts. Like it hasn't. I didn't leave the theater being like, whoa, everyone's got to
Yeah.
see this in a way that I
Yeah.
had like for Guardians 3 and even No Way Home, which we both don't love as much as others. But I still felt like I needed to tell people like you need to go see this in theaters, whereas I don't feel
Right.
that urge for
Right.
Thunderbolts, at least not right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess like one of the criticisms that I walked away with this film is that it feels like they didn't really commit to things as hard as they should have, and I think that's what we're kind of talking about with like the R rating. Like there's this great messaging about mental health that I think that they really should have leaned in like even more so, and I think we
Mhm.
can get into that more in the spoiler section of the
Yeah, this
review.
is going to be a very spoiler heavy review later because I think a
Yeah.
lot of the talking points are worth being surprised. Like you should not know going in because it adds
Yeah.
for the experience. But yeah.
What I will say, one of the things, first of all, I didn't really take notes during this film because it was really holding my attention. Whereas
Mhm.
with Captain America, I took a ton of notes. So
I
I really
remember.
had to like go back. Yeah, I really had to go back and like, think about all my thought processes this morning
No.
when I was like going through, everything that I thought about it. But what I will say is that, first of all, this movie takes off running. And I think going back to what we were saying earlier, like it's kind of really lives in its own space and does its own thing, is that because even like the arcs of the film, even the beats, like the acts, that the way that they're set up, it just feels so fresh and different
Mhm.
because you get the main conflict of this film like almost immediately. Like I would say like 10-15 minutes in. Like there's
Yeah.
really not like a ton of build up beforehand. And once you realize what's happening, I was like, "Oh shit." Like once you realize like how they all like come together like as a
Yeah.
team, like
Mhm.
that was like a good surprise that I liked because the
Yeah.
trailer kind of alluded us to something different, you know?
Yeah, well, and it's also like you and your brain have to like going into the movie. You're like, so why would like Ghost team up with
Yeah.
John Walker? Would team up with Yelena? And like we all understand by now that they're all with Valentina. Like that was
Yeah.
established in the Black Widow post credits and in the Falcon Winter Soldier post credits. That like Valentina is kind of the Nick Fury, but we've never seen her be like, I'm putting together a team. It's always like, you're my guy, you're my guy, you're my guy. So it's like, how's
Yeah.
this group going to come together? And like, why is Valentina going to bring this group together? And I really think, yeah, it was a really organic way to do it in a way that also still, you know, let them be individuals in a group because the whole thing is they're not an established group early on. They
Mhm.
really are never an established group. They kind of have to
Yeah.
be, but it's really
Yeah.
refreshing to see that like the whole like John Walker I would consider one of the antagonists of this film because the whole time he's an antagonistic force for the rest of the group.
Mhm.
Not that he's a bad guy. I mean, he's kind of a shitty guy, but you get a little bit more humanization from
Kind of.
certain aspects of his life in this film, but it's also
Yeah.
like he's an antagonistic presence in this film in a way that like he I think holds the group back at times and they have to learn how to like but he's not the villain of the film per se. And that's what I like about this
Mhm.
film is they're all kind of antagonists in their own way to the group. Yelena's her own antagonist for herself, even because she's going through so
Mhm.
much mental stuff. So I like that too, that they're not just like immediately like 15 minutes in, all right, now we're a team, let's hit the ground running. It's like, no, they have to actually work through shit to become the team that they are by the end. And even at the end, are they a team? Yes, they are, but it's still more of like a we kind of have to be. It's not like a yeah.
Yeah.
It's more like okay, well, this is what we got, so like we got to roll with it type deal, Which I
Yeah,
like that.
it's
That's refreshing. It's not this camaraderie that you see in like Guardians and even the Avengers. It's a very different type of team dynamic, which I like.
Yeah, they're almost like the anti-Avengers because it's not like a found family type of thing. It's kind of like a, well, we have to work together. So
Yeah.
let's just get it done. Another thing that I wanted to point out in the non-spoiler section is that the performances in this film are so good. This
Mm,
is such I just felt like between every time like Florence Pugh and Lewis Pullman were having a scene together, I was like, "Oh my god, like I'm locked in." Like there's so much heart and emotion and none of this is what I was expecting going into it. I thought it was going to be like, you know, sh- kitschy comedy and the Red Guardian being the Red Guardian and crazy action sequences and probably more grittiness. I was definitely expecting a little bit more like violence and graphicness, but this like heart and emotion and like these moments that were like kind of bringing me to tears at one point was not what I was expecting at
mhm,
all. And I think it's just because like the cast works so well together, specifically Florence Pugh, Lewis Pullman, David Harbour had really great moments in this film. Like it was just I don't know, I can't remember the last time like everyone does a good job in the MCU, but I can't remember the last time like a performance like really like drew me in and was like the one of the main things that
mhm.
I like remembered
Yeah.
walking away from an MCU film.
Yeah, because like Harrison Ford had a little bit of that in the last movie, but it's also like he's Harrison Ford, so I think just his gravitas as a stage legend or a screen and stage legend compared to
Yeah.
also a bunch of people who I think are being underutilized. My only pushback on that, I agree the performances are great, but I think this
Yeah.
is more of like a writing thing than a performance thing. But I almost felt like despite it being this team thing, and this kind of goes back to what you said about like it's not a found family. I think because it's not a found family, some of the characters feel underdeveloped, underwritten, and
Mm,
underutilized. Where like
okay.
for example, like I think Wyatt Russell is awesome as John Walker, but it's also the John Walker we've been seeing in the other movies. And the one glimpse that we get that's a little different, they don't really develop too much because it
Yeah.
is a very
Yeah.
I'll say right now, it's Yelena's movie and it's Sentry's movie. Like those
Yeah.
two are the two anchors. Like Red Guardian, I would say is like maybe number 3, Valentina number 4. Like those four kind of share most of the spotlight, and then you have like a few bit characters. Like I'd say like Ghost, John Walker, Taskmaster, and like who's the other main character? Oh, Geraldine Viswanathan's character, the assistant, and even
Yeah.
Bucky. I feel like all of them are kind of just like I didn't get anything more from this movie of their performances that I haven't gotten in other movies. Whereas, like, I definitely felt the evolution with Florence Pugh, a little bit with David Harbour, but even then, like, I feel like a lot of the father-daughter stuff was still in Black Widow, to where like I don't think I'm getting anything new from David Harbour in this one. He's just doing the same
Ye-
old thing. And I
Sure.
think that's just kind of the structure of this. It's not that found family, so you're not getting everyone getting their moment like in Guardians
Yeah.
3, how every single one gets an epilogue. It's like, no, it's really
Yeah.
just Yelena and Sentry getting the main closure to their arcs in this film. And like, yes, there's still a team thing. And I think that was kind of the one reason I was probably underwhelmed, because I was expecting it to be this Guardians thing where each one has their defined arc. And I think it's there, but I do think they very clearly were more focused on Yelena and Bob, or Yelena and
Yeah.
Sentry, not everyone else, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know if you
No.
felt that too, but yeah, like
No
especially
doubt.
Ghost, because Ghost is the one that I feel like actually had a lot of cool stuff in her movie, and now this
Yeah.
one is really just there because I think they need another girl in the group. I really do.
Mm.
And like Taskmaster, I love her arc in this, but I also felt like she was underutilized.
No. Yeah. 100%.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I have some more complaints that I can get into in the spoiler section, but what I will say is that I don't know how long this movie was, but I felt like it could have been like 10 minutes longer just to
Mhm.
like really flesh out all of these people. Like, I this is a movie that I wouldn't have minded being like 2.5 hours just because I really was enjoying myself, and because there were like so many like people to dive into, especially with like all of the mental health talk that was going around this film. Like, I really wanted to like dive into like all of it, like
Yeah.
individually, you know?
Because think
And
of like the
I,
Avengers too. Like we know Loki has probably the biggest arc in the Avengers. It's like, but
mhm,
Iron Man has an arc, Cap has an arc, Thor has an arc, Black Widow has an arc, Hawkeye, who at the time was just like, oh yeah, that guy with the bow and arrow, but he had an arc in Avengers. Where I feel like
yeah,
here it's Yelena and Bob, and then everyone else has like scenes and moments. But even
mhm,
Bucky, like I thought they were going somewhere, and then they were like, no, it's more to kind of like rope in the other, like the assistant character. Like he's almost as
mm,
more of a plot device for her than he is his own arc, because I feel like we've done all we need to do with Bucky right now, you know.
yeah.
But
No, I agree. I'm just saying, like, what else I have in my
yeah,
notes.
I will agree though. I love Lewis Pullman, like such a great addition, and I love
Yeah.
that he's coming back for. I mean, like they announced in the Doomsday trailer thing that of this cast, I think everyone was announced for Doomsday except I think Julia Louis Dreyfus was not, and then Olga
Mm,
Kurylenko, who plays Taskmaster, was not. Then I didn't see the assistant on there, but I think all the other main characters in this film are going to be back. So
oh,
it's
yeah.
just great to like kind of, especially Bob, because he was the one unknown that we hadn't seen before. Him and then
Mhm.
the assistant character. Um, and I thought they actually made a really nice presence, like Bob, because I'm also used to seeing him play kind of the well, it's interesting because he plays Bob in a lot of other movies. His character in Top Gun Maverick is literally named Bob, and he's like this like nerdy little guy with the glasses, and he's really smart, but
Yeah.
he's very much the kind of runt of the litter. But it's cool to see
Yeah.
him kind of have a multifaceted performance in this without getting into spoilers. But I mean, people know he's Sentry just because that's his character in the comics. But it's like, Sentry is a much more like Superman like figure, almost like
Uh-huh.
Adam from Guardians 3. It's like it's a very
Yeah.
different type of persona than Bob, and I like how he plays both of them well, and he's convincing in both of them too. It didn't seem like, you know, when like Kumail got jacked for Eternals, and you're like,
Mm.
that just doesn't feel right. It still
Yeah.
feels natural when he is this kind of more like god like figure, than when he is just Bob. But I like how he plays both of them really well. Anyway, that's
Yeah.
my Lewis Pullman love there.
No, yeah, he was kind of a sleeper because you don't really expect. Yeah, I mean, I had no idea what to expect from all of his like little moments of like all the different trailers that we got. So
Mm,
it was really nice to like kind of see this like, you know, un pretty much unknown character, mystery character, kind of go through all of these highs and lows throughout the film, and
Mhm.
which is just really exciting. I felt like even though there weren't any like huge like, oh my god, they're in this, or oh my god, they're introducing this now, like even though there wasn't any of that, there were still a good amount of surprises that I'm glad they didn't reveal to us in the trailer.
Yeah, just like plot surprises. And that's the thing.
Yeah.
I'd much rather a big like character or plot arc change and reveal and twist than like,
Mhm.
oh my god, Valkyrie is the one who like shows up for this 2 minute scene in the Marvels. Like that's not the stuff I care about. I mean, it's
Yeah.
cool. It's like part
Yeah.
of the overall world building, but at this point, like except for like the Chris Evans bit and the Gambit bit, I actually love Gambit so much. I bought a little pop the other day of him. But like that stuff in Deadpool Wolverine was so just cool because it's also like kind of a meme. But like
Yeah.
at that point, like for like a movie like this, if it's not promised to be this multiversal thing, like I love how it's not a cameo fest. I love how like what you see is what you got on the poster. It's these 6 or 7 characters and that's it. I love that. And then like post credits, we'll talk about obviously, but
Yeah.
that was not even directed by the same director. The Russo brothers directed the post credit scene, so we'll talk about that in a sec. But one last thing I want to say before we get into spoilers because I think it's about that time.
Yeah.
If you have not seen it yet, the asterisk on the title does mean something. It's not just there as like a cute little wink. It's not there to even like be like, this is what this means. There is an actual intention behind the asterisk on the title. It is revealed in the movie, but it's something you should probably not look up, even though once it happens, you could probably kind of be like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it in a sec, but I just want to let people know the ads, if you live in a big city and there's a billboard for Thunderbolts, there's a chance that they're changing the name on the billboard right now. I will show you pictures, Kels, once we get into the spoiler section. At the AMCs, they are literally replacing the Thunderbolts stand-ups, like the cardboard stand-ups, with the new title. So be careful if you're going to theaters and you
Mm.
don't want to know what the real title of the movie is, because the asterisk is basically like, that's not the real title. If you don't want to know what the real title is, go in with your blinders on. The Kentucky Derby was just this past weekend. Like, put the blinders on when you go to the theater because there was some stuff spoiled. And I know like Matt, I was talking to the Discord, has not seen it yet. So like, please be careful out there. Just know that you could get spoiled, especially with like TV ads as well. I don't know what they're gonna say. I don't know what's gonna happen, but the actual title is out there on ads in the wide open spaces of the cities we live in. So just be careful. Kelsey, do you think the title is like a big spoiler? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, it's probably best that people stay away from it. But that was our review for
Yeah.
Thunderbolts Asterisk, aka, which we'll get into in a sec. But thanks for watching. We both liked it. Kelsey loved it more than me, but I still liked it. And now we're gonna move on to spoilers. Spoilers. Kels, can we talk about the title? Because I just
Yeah.
want to show you what I saw earlier, which is just absolutely nuts. This is at an AMC. They literally replaced the title. Like, if you haven't seen the movie yet and you're going to an AMC, like,
Yeah.
I feel like that's kind of shitty to do. And like, not that it makes a
No, I
huge difference
agree.
because it's still a team up movie. So like, yeah, it makes a lot of sense that they're the new Avengers. But what did you think of this? Now knowing that it is a new Avengers film, not just a Thunderbolts film, because I think that's the first talking point that I want to get into because it does change a lot of my thoughts on some parts of the movie. But what do you think
Yeah.
about this being the new Avengers film?
I mean, I'm definitely surprised.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know what the asterisk was going to mean. I mean, I assumed it was going to mean that Thunderbolts was not what they were sticking with as their name. I thought that they were going to become something else.
Which they
Like,
did.
like the asterisk kind of meaning like subject to change kind of thing.
Right, like a cheeky
Um,
little wink, like it could change later, but you didn't think they would actually like commit to a name change in the movie.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so to be announced as the new Avengers is crazy. Also the way that it happened was crazy with getting like tricked into like a press release led by Valentina being like, and now I introduce to you the new Avengers.
Yeah.
And then I just loved the moment at the end where Florence Pugh just goes, now we own you. And
Right.
so I'm like, all right,
And
maybe Val can
yeah.
get her comeuppance eventually.
That's the
Go
thing. I
ahead.
love that she didn't get a comeuppance in a way of like John Walker could have
Mm.
just beat the shit out of her, which would have been a little too much. I think.
Yeah.
I hate you shouldn't punch women, but it's also one of those things
Right.
where it's like I was expecting her to get like jailed or something at the
Mm.
end, but really like I love
Mhm.
how she does win, but does she? And I love that like
Yeah.
she's still at the end of the day she still was one step ahead. She knew this
Mhm.
was like, she's even like, oh, and then she's like, here they are. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
really love Valentina in this movie. I think she's just the
Yeah.
great balance of like villain and actually like being an intriguing character, not just like a one note villain. I really do love the manipulation because it also feels a little bit like a commentary on our politics without being having to actually turn into a red monster because of it. So
Right.
I really like that she was like just like this really conniving, but also like oddly alluring presence in this movie. I really loved her. But yeah, I was a little shocked also because I feel like it's bold to say like these characters are the new Avengers because of kind of what I said. Like this movie's not
Mhm.
about all of them. It's about the team up, but it's really more about Yelena and Bob. And the fact that Bob, I guess, is not gonna have his powers now. He's just kind of be there as like a friend and a dude who hangs out with them. I'm also kind
Yeah.
of like, I don't know, for this to be like the new Avengers, like like even Hawkeye, I felt like had his fans. Like I don't think anyone's leaving this being like, oh my god, yeah, Ghost is an Avenger now. Fuck yeah! Like, and I wish the
Yeah,
movie did a
yeah.
better job. Like, if this is the new Avengers, I wish it was more of like the old Avengers, where we're at least getting a fulfilling arc from everyone. Because I feel like Ghost, especially, was just so underdeveloped that it's
Mhm.
sad because she's also now one of the only two girls in the group. Because spoiler alert, Taskmaster did not have a good arc because she died. That was
Yeah.
my. I could see you kind of like smile a little when I said that earlier.
I was
But
like, I see what he's doing.
yeah, but it's also like I don't know. I feel like if this is the new team that's gonna, because essentially this should be the team that is like the center of the MCU. It's also weird that like no Cap, no Doctor Strange, no Black Panther, no Spider Man, no Thor. Like, are they really gonna maybe have a different Avengers group that's battling the new Avengers? Is this like a new Avengers that everyone's gonna be like, no, come on? Because we even hear in the post credits like Sam Wilson's like, come on, y'all, no. But then Bucky's in this
Yeah.
group, and you feel like Bucky would be with the other group. So it's weird.
Yeah.
I just feel like this is not it's an interesting direction to go in. I'm not 100% sold, but also not sold. Like I just have to see how it works in Doomsday. But it's interesting that like this is how they want to proceed forward. Like this is going to be the Avengers going forward, and it's a lot of characters that I feel like the audience doesn't really care about. And even after this movie, I feel like the audience cares a lot about Yelena and Red Guardian and Bucky, but that's kind of it. Like I don't think the
Yeah.
audience cares that much for John Walker or Ghost yet. In a way
Yeah.
that they want to like see them like, oh my god, they're in the Avengers now. It's not even like
Yeah.
Age of Ultron's the one that ends with them being like, and you are the new Avengers or whatever. You're now Avengers. To like Scarlet Witch and
Oh, yeah,
um,
yeah. Where
Falcon.
Cap is like Avengers, us, but then it cuts
Yeah,
off.
but
So
that's
it's
the
like,
thing. Like by then we had
yeah.
loved those characters and were like fully on board with them becoming part of the group. Whereas here, I'm not. I
Mhm.
don't think the movie did a good enough job selling us that this was going to be the foundation of the MCU going forward. But
Yeah.
what do you think of
Yeah.
it? What do you think? What do you think?
Um, I mean, I definitely just love the dynamic of how all of them work together throughout the film. I love the use of Ava's powers because she's really the only one that has like supernatural besides Bob, who's Sentry. Like she's the only one that with really supernatural abilities. So I think
Mm,
that she makes a great addition to the group just to like change things up a bit. Because other than that, like they really only all like fight and point and shoot, just like Yelena said. So
yeah,
I personally am invested in her addition. Um, I definitely think that there's room to grow. I mean, one of the things that I wanted to say from the beginning was that with the final act of the film and how they defeat the villain who is the Void, um, they go through really we only see Yelena go through like her trauma. Once she enters the void, they all go through their different like worst moments in life. And we only really see Yelena go through that.
right.
We see John Walker go it
Earlier,
happened to
though.
John Walker earlier in the beginning of the
They don't
film.
follow up
Well,
with it. you
they
know,
don't follow up with it, and then we don't see it happen to anybody else. I mean, we know Bucky's passed by now, but I think it would have been cool to like dive into like something, watch Red Guardian go through it, watch Ghost go through it, so that way we can care about these characters a little bit more and kind of
Mhm.
get a little bit more insight into their
Well,
backstories.
that's why I love Valentina in this movie because we get her too. We get a lot of her
Oh yeah,
backstory.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. We do.
yeah.
Yeah,
Ugh.
which was crazy. See, like these are like the surprising moments that like I wasn't expecting. Like I
Right.
didn't know that that was going to be a part of his abilities at all. I didn't even know
Mhm.
what Bob was going to
Yeah.
do or be, you
I think
know?
they did a great job with Bob. Like just making
Yeah.
the mystery early on. You think he's just going to be this little comedic relief guy, but then he ends up becoming like this like Adam. Like I think Adam's the closest thing in the MCU that we can like attribute him
Yeah.
to in terms of his powers and his physique and the way he's like golden and his blonde hair and he's shining.
Yeah.
But then also at the end, he is Bob again. And I think that's interesting because it's like, you don't have to necessarily, because I think it's the problem of the Amelia Clarke thing in Secret Invasion, where when you create a character that's too powerful, you can't use them in future movies because, like, it's a handicap. It's kind of like the Captain
Mhm.
Marvel thing. You had to figure out a
Mhm.
way. And I guess Thanos is more powerful than Captain Marvel, maybe. But it's also like one of those things where it's like, how does she not just come in and clean house and fix up everything? Like, why do you even need anyone else? It was kind of what
Yeah.
people thought in the originals about Thor. They're like, well, when you have a god, like, what is Hawkeye going to do with his arrow? You know?
Yeah, yeah.
But like that movie, like, what I like about it is like Iron Man, Cap, Thor, Hawkeye. Those are four very different fighting styles, four very different powers. And I think the criticism I have
Mhm.
is that you said Ghost is the only one with a power that's not super strength or punching or shooting.
Yeah.
And I think that's
Yeah.
hard when you're making this the team. It's like not everyone has a different thing. Whereas, like, I think if
Yeah.
you were to make a team with Shang-Chi and Cap and Thor and Doctor Strange, then you have four different powers there because Cap can
Yeah.
fly now and Thor is a god. And the thing is, I think there's not enough versatility in this group in terms of power, in terms of
Mhm.
personality, maybe. But even then, by the end, they seem all kumbaya in the post-credit scene. They don't seem at odds, and I think that's the
Yeah.
problem going forward. But again, I do agree with you. There's room to grow, and I could also see a world where it becomes almost like a Civil War type thing, where Cap has his group, and then Bucky has
Mhm.
his group, and then they're like, "Come on, like we got to work together, or this can't happen." And he's like, "Well, we're the Avengers. You're not the Avengers. You calling
Yeah.
yourself the new Avengers, but you're not. You're just the Thunderbolts or something like that." But then it just becomes Civil War again. But again, at least it would be something interesting, like some sort of interesting dynamic. Because I think the most interesting Marvel films are the ones where the heroes are at odds with one another while also fighting the villain. So
Yeah.
I do think there's room to grow. It does seem like, based on the movie we got, I don't know how fulfilling it is to be like, this is your team now. This is it. This is the
Mhm.
Avengers. Because like after the Avengers, because they had spent so many years, setting it up, Nick Fury coming into every movie and being like, I'm putting together a team, and then by the end you feel like this is your team. You're like, yeah, you're gonna roll
Mhm.
with this six. Now I'm not feeling the same oomph that I did at the end of that movie, and I think that's the thing. That's why I'm a little underwhelmed by this. Not to say it's a bad movie. I think it's refreshing how, especially with all the
Mhm.
things we talked about. But I'm a little underwhelmed
Yeah.
just because at the end I'm like, really the only one right now that I'm like, yes, is Yelena. And because even Bob is no longer Sentry anymore. And I guess
Right.
I
Right.
have a question for you. Does that mean he can like tap into Sentry, but he has the risk of turning into the Void again? Or do you think he's fully like just Bob again? Or is he Sentry, like, because he's like, we can ride, because then they're like, I'll ride Bob or something?
So I looked into Century in
Please, please.
my encyclopedia. I left the page because I was trying to see if there was a tab for the new Avengers. I wanted to see if like that was a group that was specifically written about in the comics. Jury's still out on that. You're gonna have to give me another second to find that one.
Hmm.
But when I looked into Century, it feels like um he can become Sentry, but once he's done being Sentry, his memory is wiped. And that's what we saw happen in the movie, where he was like, "Oh, hey, like what happened? What are you
Mm,
guys all standing around like what are we doing?
gotcha.
I don't know what's going on." So when that moment happened where he was like fully like and they were like, "Are you okay? Like do you not just what happened?" And then he was like, yeah, so his memory gets fully wiped. So I don't even think he remembers what he does when he becomes Sentry. I think
Mm.
that, if we include Bob in future films, I think that they're gonna like turn to him sometimes and be like, Bob, we need you. Like, please be
Almost
Sentry.
like Hulk in Infinity War, where he's like,
Yeah,
you got the green guy, he's got to come out, and he's like, no, I'm not
yeah,
ready, because that could be a really interesting arc too. If the whole Doomsday Bob's like, I'm scared to become him again, and then like
yeah,
the arc is learning how to kind of come, but then it's his Hulk again. But I don't mind that. Like again, if you're gonna recycle, I mean, it obviously works. Like recycling what works is better than half-assing what doesn't. But yeah, it's very interesting with Bob. But I'm interested to see like, I want to know what's going to happen with this character in the future. Is he going to be a comedic relief sidekick like Happy Hogan, or is he going to actually
yeah,
like find this balance like the Hulk did? Or maybe he's not. Maybe he's going to succumb to Sentry again, and we're just going to get this movie all over again. I
yeah.
think there's a lot of avenues though with that character to explore that I'm fascinated with.
Because if there's a character that is undefeatable, which is not a word, I know, but if there is one, it's freaking Century because
Right.
you can't even lay a hand on him. And when you do, he's completely unfazed. Like,
Right.
it doesn't even matter how many times you shoot him. They literally had like a firearm line. What's that called? a firing squad, like lined up.
Firing line. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's firing squad. I think
Uh-huh.
I got there eventually, but they
Yeah.
all shooting at him. Rounds on rounds and rounds of bullets are going into this guy's body. It was overkill to the max. I was like, this feels unnecessary. And then all of a sudden he just gets up again. Like, it doesn't matter how many times you shoot him, stab him, whatever weapon you use on him. Like, he can't be beat. So I think
Yeah.
that's kind of why they have to like keep him under wraps, especially because once he's out, he can pretty much take on like anybody, it
Yeah.
seems, unless they make like Doctor Doom his like one weakness,
Yeah,
then
and like the
like
kryptonite
his
thing. Yeah.
Thanos. Yeah.
Hmm. But it's
So
also, yeah, that kind of is a little bit of a handicap though, because now I'm like, now you have that, you can just use that, and it's really interesting because we've seen a lot of characters like that in past movies. Even like Red Hulk was an example of one where it's like no one in that movie can beat him, and it's one of
yeah,
those things where all these characters have to almost be like talked down emotionally to like get them back to earth in a way, which is interesting, which is but I
mm,
feel like if they keep doing this where they're like, this guy can't be stopped with powers, so we're going to use our words, like it's a good
yeah,
sentiment, but I feel like it's happening a little too often now.
yeah.
So I want to see a villain that you could just like kick the crap out of and kill, you know.
Right,
So
right.
we'll see. But I am interested in Bob in the future. I think him and Yelena have the most interesting prospects going forward. Red Guardian's going to be a great Drax like figure. Like I feel like Red Guardian's just going to stay stagnant, but I don't mind it. He's a good comedic relief.
Yeah.
I just really hope they give more for Ghost and Bucky in the future. I feel like Ghost and Bucky we know, so it's like a little different, but I really didn't think it added much to this movie at all, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, we could have seen more of like him like trying to be a congressman. Like we do hear like from just a few lines in the film that like he's not doing that well at it because like he's never gotten a bill passed. He's not like he's only been doing it for like half a term. He's like very new to the whole like political scene of it all. Um but I guess we could have leaned in and saw more of like what that life was like for him, but he
Yeah,
leaves it very quickly. Like he's like, okay, I got to get back on the front lines. Like working within the system was clearly not working for me,
yeah,
and
he's
I need to
terrible at
get
it
back
too.
on my motorcycle and fuck some shit up.
Yeah, what does he say when they ask him a question? He says like he says
Yeah,
the
yeah.
same
He's
thing
like,
3 times. Yeah.
yeah, he keeps saying like, and we're all worried about this worrying situation. It is worrying,
Yeah,
and
he's like a
like,
bad politician. But I also
yeah,
love that this movie's like he's a bad politician who's able to admit his mistakes and step down because he knows he's unfit to rule. And then you
yeah,
also have Valentina who's like, no, you can't impeach me. I got this, I got that. No, you can't.
yeah, yeah,
I'm gonna
yeah.
promise you all this shit, which is like,
Your witch hunt is gonna come up clean.
yeah. But like it's very interesting to see the dichotomy of like, oh, maybe I should step down and not run for a second election because I'm old and unfit to run the country. And then you have the other person who's like, you can't impeach me. I've got treasures galore for you. I
Yeah.
don't know, just saying. No, but I really like the mental illness aspect that we were a little talking about, but very harrowing too to see Elena just walk into the darkness like that. Like, and I
Yeah.
really like that Yelena, like when the bomb explodes in the building, she just kind of closes her eyes and accepts death. She walks into that void, probably knowing there's a chance she could not come back. Like I thought this
Yeah.
played with mental illness in a very fascinating way, which is why I do wish we got like a follow up on the John Walker stuff, and because you can see in that
Mhm.
scene he's hurting, but then you don't really get it elsewhere. Like it's kind of a throwaway. But I really love what they did with Yelena's character, especially because I feel like there's so much talk of like, oh, so Haley Steinfeld is the new Hawkeye, and Thor's kid is going to be the new Thor, and
Yeah.
Yelena's going to be the new Black Widow, and it's like one of those things where it's always going to live in Natasha's shadow, and by quite literally having her step into the shadow and confront it,
Yeah.
I thought that was a brilliant choice. I thought it was a really brilliant third act in that sense.
First of all, Dale, I really liked the effect of how people were disappearing.
Oh, it
I
was
thought that
scary.
like the sound and the look of the
Yeah,
void and and the way that people were just turning into shadows and darkness was just like very just like aesthetically pleasing to me.
yeah.
I thought that it was very very cool. I wrote down the void is scary. Like he was a very like menacing figure to look at, just like this whole black figure and then just the two shiny little orbs of his eyes. I was like,
Mhm.
this guy's spooky. And I wasn't expecting a super menacing villain like that. Again, I don't know what I was expecting when it was coming to this Bob character, but this was not it at all. Um, and what I will say is that even the introduction to Bob's powers that, um, he makes people kind of like relive their like most traumatic moments in life if he touches you. Um, it was just, oh my god, there's so many layers to that to talk about, but just how it was introduced to us. So they escape. Sorry, I want to go back again because
You're good.
the first shocking moment of this film, really for me, was the brand new Marvel intro, which was not
Okay.
the
We're going way
clips
back.
from
Yeah.
the movies. I
Mhm.
need to go back and then I will jump a little forward and then I will
Mhm.
get back on my train of thought, I promise.
No,
But
you're
the
good.
first thing I wrote down, and the only thing I wrote down during the whole movie, was new Marvel intro, because it was just went back to the classic comic book look and then it all faded to blackness to allude to the void later in the film, which I was surprised about. Do you think that this was just a Marvel intro for this group, or do you
Hmm.
think this is the new Marvel intro moving forward?
Now knowing that it's the new Avengers, I wonder if this is the new intro. Because
Right.
I mean,
That's what
thinking
I'm
about it,
thinking.
like Cap is done, like old Cap, Steve Rogers Cap,
Yeah.
Iron Man's done. Like all these characters are kind of done,
Yeah.
except for maybe Thor. So it's like I really don't know if they want that old intro. Um,
Right.
I don't know. I
Unless
think
they
this might
just
be it.
fill the letters with all the new characters that they have. If they just take out the one of Chris Evans
Maybe.
and Robert Downey Jr. It was
Yeah.
interesting to me that they went back to the comic book look.
Well, it's also worth noting. I think this is the last film of Phase Five, correct? So this could be the way of saying like this is it, because I think
Mm,
Fantastic Four is the start of Phase Six. So it's one of those things where I really think this could be just them saying this is it, like this is a new chapter. We're done. We're moving on. Um,
yeah.
yeah. Hmm. Interesting.
So that was the first shock of this film. The second shock of this film is how they all get together, how they all end up in the same like bunker, because they've all been hired by Valentina to kill one another. So she tells Yelena that her target is Ghost, Ghost's target is Taskmaster, and Taskmaster's
It's
target is
John.
John
And
Walker,
John is
and
Yelena.
John Walker is Yelena. So
Really
now
fun
they're all,
device. Really fun device.
yes.
Very good way to like get them all in the same space organically without making it feel forced. It is forced,
Yeah.
but it's meticulous on Valentina's part, and it makes her more villainous too. Because like it could
Yes.
have worked, and it did for a quarter of it.
Yeah, yeah. And plus, because it's like not only does she have this kill switch ready to go, she's gonna incinerate the whole bunker, killing them all in there anyway. But it's like she could just kill two birds with one stone by making them all go after each other, because they know at least, one of them might actually get the other. You know what I mean? They
Mhm.
might all just end up killing each other.
Yeah, that way
The
she
only
doesn't
one
even have
we
to have the blood on her hands anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. The only one that we mentioned before, the only one that actually does die is Taskmaster, which is crazy, sucks to be her.
Does it though? Because here's the thing. It sucks to be the actress because like you're coming in and you find out that your character is not going to make it, and that sucks. But
Yeah.
also, she is like top billed, not top billed, but she's in like the billing for this movie. She's on
Mhm.
every poster. She's in every piece of marketing. She's a toy amongst all the toys that they sell because they want to like keep the surprise. Obviously, they want that
Yeah.
shock value. I think it would have been more shocking if it came at the expense of like John Walker. Like that would have been more crazy. I think more of like a, oh shit, this is
Yeah,
what we're in
yeah.
for. I think Taskmaster was always the most vulnerable, and they kind of spoiled it with Doomsday. I did call it because she was the only one not mentioned for the movie. I did say I'm like Taskmaster's dying. I called it, but
Got it.
I
Yeah.
didn't expect it to happen this suddenly, this fast. And honestly, I like the bold choice. Her agent is the best agent in Hollywood because she was able to get poster, Wheaties box, all the marketing for 10 seconds of screen time. That is
Yeah.
the dream. To
Literally
get
one
paid that
line.
Marvel movie for one line, and she got to show her face in that one line. So she's still getting
Yeah.
FaceTime. And like that
Yeah.
scene is going to be one that people play back because it's like, whoa, look what they did. I am
Yeah.
sad just because I think that character had a lot of promise. And I also
Yeah.
think like we don't really see Ghost reckon with it very much. Ghost doesn't feel bothered by it a
Yeah.
lot of it. But Yelena also mentioned something about like I knew that girl, but like they really don't develop on that much more. So like
Yeah.
I really honestly think if like Ghost or Wyatt, not Wyatt, John were one of the two to die, it might have been a little bit more interesting because it would have been a little bit more of a shock to the audience. I think when you take
Yeah.
out the least popular one, it's like all right, it's kind of a cheat sheet. But also like I don't know. It was a cool choice just because it was a choice, and it was like you promised this big team, and then one of them died, which made me think we could lose more along the way. And now knowing it's a new Avengers film, if I ever go back, I'm never like if someone knows it's a new Avengers film watching it, they're probably not going to expect anyone to die after that.
Mhm.
But it is really cool. It's I mean like Quicksilver died in the Age of Ultron, but you rarely see one of the core team die in their first like team up movie, you know.
Yeah.
Guardians, it took how long for Gamora to die, and she didn't even die in a Guardians movie. But it's like it's really
Yeah.
interesting that like one of the team was off right away. The only problem is like I would have loved to see that character more because I actually
Mhm.
think that character is fascinating, and they actually have not a power, but they have some semblance of unique fighting ability that is not
Yeah.
like Yelena's and John's and just punchy. So
Right.
I don't know, but a
Right.
very cool choice, and good for that agent for getting every piece of marketing. Her face is on there. Good for
Yeah.
her. Yeah.
No, that's true. Now I'm like, it's so funny to like see her on like every poster now because you think she's gonna be a part of the team
It's
and she's
it's
very much not.
it's Foggy and Daredevil. It's you're getting all that money
God.
for 10 minutes and like you're gonna milk it, you
Yeah.
know? Um
Yeah.
but I do feel bad
And
if she wanted to be a bigger part and they were like, sorry. Like that sucks as an actor that
yeah.
you're kind of done. But
I mean, like, who doesn't want to be, have that 5 movie MCU contract, But to be included in 2 MCU movies is also a gift. So you can also look at it that way.
right. With
But what
Florence
I
Pugh.
Yeah, yeah, especially.
Yeah.
Um, but what I will say, and what you were kind of alluding to, Dill, was that I just expected a bigger moment for when Antonia died for Yelena because like they did go through that whole arc of Yelena literally being the one to like free her from being under Dreykov's spell in that movie. I
Mhm.
know it was probably technically um Natasha, but I feel like Yelena took a big part in like trying to free the widows, and so I feel like it should have hit a little harder for
Yeah.
her. And
And she didn't
also,
die for Yelena in this sense. She just kind of
right.
died because Ghost was like, "Shoo, boom."
Yeah,
Like it
yeah.
was
See, it
jarring.
was cool. It's cool. And it was jarring. But I was and after Ava realized that she basically killed her for no reason, I expected maybe a little bit more remorse just to
Yeah.
show a little bit, of dynamics for her character. Just to be like, oh shit, like I killed that girl and I didn't even have to. And because the only real conversation they have about it is like, "Oh, I knew her. She killed a lot of people and got killed, and just like it'll all happen to us one day." And so that's one of the more heavy-hitting lines that gets said during this film. There's a few
Mhm.
that happen later on that I'll talk about if I remember. But what was I saying before? Oh, the introduction of Bob's power, because
We're back.
now they they finally get blasted out of the room, and Yelena hits the wall so hard that she gets like put in like a dream. Like I just assumed she was knocked unconscious, and now she's like reliving this like past memory where you see her first mission as a widow play out, where she had to lure a fellow young girl as she was a young girl.
Yeah, like 10 or 11 she looked. Maybe a
Yeah,
little older, but
she
she was
like
a kid.
lures this young girl out into the forest, and then the young girl is killed by this man for whatever reason. That was her first mission as a widow. But then all of a sudden, Bob is in this dream with her. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? And then they wake up together and they're holding hands. And so that's kind of how his power was able to take place. And what I love so much about this power is that we see in this scene, especially once they all get freed, we see these moments of Bob being like, hey, maybe it's better if I just kind of, you guys should just go without me. It's better, it'll be better for everyone if I just
Mhm.
like hang back and basically die. Like he's basically gonna sacrifice himself to for no reason, because you see he has a lot of self-esteem issues, a lot of mental health issues.
Yeah.
um and what I love about this power is that it almost feels like if you touch Bob, you relive one of the more traumatic moments in your life, and then
Yeah.
you obviously wake up feeling some type of way about it. And it's kind of almost a glimpse into like Bob being like, this is how I feel all the time. I'm
Mhm.
constantly reliving my trauma. It is
Yeah.
constantly hanging over me. It is constantly making me feel like a shadow in darkness.
Ooh.
And so you just really feel for this character right off the bat because of this moment. And then because I'm not a comic book, like I never read any of the comic books, when they had the line that was like, and what does this emptiness, this darkness feel like? And he says it feels like a void. I was like, oh shit, this character, this
Yeah.
villain, now his name is probably Void. And then
Hmm.
I looked it up and I was right. So
Yeah.
that was fun for me to
Hmm.
learn in this movie. I know
Yeah.
comic book nerds are probably yelling at the screen like, what, you
No,
didn't
no,
know
I was the
that?
same. And I think that's the thing is these characters are kind of like B-list, C-list in the comics. So it's nice to kind of not know everything about these characters. Some of them are probably original even. Like I don't know. I think John Walker's in the comics and stuff. But again, like very
Yeah,
bit roles and stuff. So
yeah.
one character is not in the comics. Mel. Did you like Mel in this movie, the assistant?
I did like Mel. I
Yeah, I
did
think she
like
has a cool
Mel.
energy. Cool energy. And it very
She's
much feels like the youth of like you want to do the right thing, you want to work for the power, but you also kind of want to speak up for it because you also know what the power is doing is wrong. Feels very much of like our generation, kind of the eyes in. The only thing I'll say though, a lot of
yeah.
people online are shipping her and Bucky. But like there are several lines where he's like, I'm like 400 years old. Like I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like I've not 400, but you know what I mean. But I feel like
Well,
at times they have a little sexual chemistry, but I don't know if it's just playful or if it's just like you're an Avenger. This is so cool, or because he's buying it a little, but I don't know if it's just I'm reading into it too much because she's also so young as an actress. Like I think of her as like the teenage girl from Blockers, so it's like hard
yeah.
for me to see
Yeah.
her because she's older now. Which I think she's probably our age, but like it's just
Yeah.
funny because I'm just like how old is she? 1995, so she's a little older than us. So she's in her 30s, but or she just turned 30 this year.
She just turned 30.
So
Yeah.
I guess it's not that weird. But a lot of people are shipping her and Bucky. Do you ship her and Bucky? Did you pick up on that or no?
Okay. So I got a little bit out of the moment where he like hands her like his business card and is kind of like call me kind of thing. I got a little bit of it there. But then after that, I was like, there's just no way because not only is I just think that there's too much of an age gap between them, not just because Bucky is like 100 years old, just because this girl seemed very like I'm 22 years old. I'm an assistant working. This is my
Right.
first job.
And she talked
Like
about like seeing
energy.
the Avengers when she was a kid. Like.
Yeah. She was
Yeah.
like, "Oh, the Battle of New York happened when I was in high school." And he's like, "Oh, I was 90." Like,
Yeah.
I just think it would be kind of weird to get them together.
Yeah.
If anything, I thought there was going to be a Bucky Yelena romance happening, but it
Oh.
seemed like there were some moments happening between Yelena and Bob where they were kind of like
Yeah. It could be one of those
they
things where
had like a
everyone's
chemistry.
everyone's depressed, everyone's got mental illness, everyone's horny for one another, but also so pathetic they can't act on it. They're all just these pathetic, lonely, single souls. Like I really do
Yeah.
think that's what this movie is, and it's this apathetic energy that's like kind of fun to like live in because you don't get a lot of that in the MCU where everyone's just kind of like, fuck this, like we're fucked, like we're just kind of over it. Like a lot of the
Yeah.
times it's like, yeah, let's fight, let's fight, we're gonna get together, we're gonna fight. This is not Thor Love and Thunder. This is like Thunderbolts. I like that
Right.
about it. Yeah, this team
What I
very
will
good.
say about the assistant is that I was surprised how quickly she kind of turned her leaf and how quickly she used Bucky's number because at first she's like, okay, yeah, fuck off. No, I work for my boss and like I'm
Yeah.
not going to betray her. And it happens very quickly where I feel like they should have waited until like when she
Act 3.
realized literally act 3 when she realized that Val was going to use Sentry and like he was this human test experiment and everybody else died and she's this awful person. Like I feel like it should have been then where she makes the switch and is like, wait, I actually think that I'm working for someone who's truly evil. I'm gonna give Bucky a call.
Yeah.
So that's the only thing about her
Yeah.
her arc that
I
I
think it's
will
what
say.
you said earlier. It's like the movie just hits the ground running and doesn't stop, which is
Yeah.
refreshing. Like I never got bored by it, but at the
Yeah.
same time, it almost feels a little rushed in that sense. Like I feel like they
Yes.
like Sentry, his whole arc is done and completed by the end of this, and like everyone's arcs are kind of done and completed by the end of this. Some of them don't even really start. They don't really like Ghost doesn't really have an arc, but like John Walker, you kind of get a snippet and then it kind of rushes to the end. I think that's the thing is
Mhm.
it all felt a little rushed. I think it could have taken more time. I think we could have made this a little longer, and also give it a more like you know resolved conclusion before even the new Avengers announcement comes because it just happens right away and then it's like yeah we're the new Avengers, boom, credits. Like I almost wish there was like a scene or two of them after the battle kind of just like almost a shawarma scene but like in like actual conversation and then
Yeah.
Valentina comes in with the new Avengers thing. But I get why it was so immediate, but it just feels like yeah like
Yeah.
it just kind of happened. It was just so quick.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. But again, it's refreshing. It's refreshing that the stakes were so personal in the end. And yes, it's still a big city where like buildings are getting crashed and all this stuff. But it's also like it's not this wormhole into space. It's not
Yeah, yeah.
aliens. It's not like even Sentry. He's a different being, I guess, but he's still human in a way. You
Mhm.
literally like they get to the human. Like it reminded me of a Christopher Nolan movie. Like Have you seen Interstellar?
No.
Yeah, like or Inception, like the last
I've
act
seen
felt
Inception.
similar to that, where it's like, it's more internalized character based that changes then the world around.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, I thought this was very interesting. Like it's just a very interesting movie. And the more we talked about it, the more I am kind of selling myself on it being better than I thought it was even after the theater. I
Yeah.
just really do wish it was a little bit more like if this is an Avengers movie, let it be about every single individual in the group and not just these two individuals and then the group. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's how I felt it was. It was Yelena and Sentry and everyone else. And I
Yeah.
just wish it was a little bit more evenly balanced. You can still make Yelena the key, like Iron Man is the head of the Avengers, like the star of that movie, but you still gave Hawkeye stuff, and I feel like the Hawkeye in this movie is Ghost and she gets nothing. So I don't
Yeah.
know. I wish it was a little bit more balanced. Or if they had just not put the new Avengers name on it to give it that pressure either.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Another shocking moment for me was when they finally have their big like camaraderie moment where they're like going like they're, saving all these civilians in the streets of New York, all having their individual hero moments. And Red Guardian saves a little girl from getting crushed
Oh my
by a
god.
rock,
It's
and then
hurt.
all of a sudden, boom, shadowed. And you're just like,
Yeah, and in that
the
moment, you don't
yeah,
realize there's no way back yet. Like, I fully thought she was gone, and
yeah.
that's the thing. That's why
I was like,
Yelena's
oh,
decision is so powerful because you don't know if she's actually gonna come back or not. And then you realize once they all go in, you're like, okay, they're coming out. But I really
yeah,
did. I really. Well, that's why I was also thinking it was too rushed because I'm like, wait, did Yelena just die? Like that was so
yeah,
anticlimactic. But I'm also like, maybe
yeah,
not because it has been set up this whole time, even from the very get go
yeah,
where she jumps off the building. So it
right.
was just very jarring. And then once you realize that like the void is something you can come back from like watching it again it won't make it as surprising, but I fully thought that that girl was just getting killed, and then I was like, oh wow, this is gonna be a really powerful moment with Red Guardian, like his whole thing is about his daughter and now this little girl is just wiped away. I thought that was a smart choice.
I'm having a lot of realizations right now in the moment, Dill.
Okay.
So, first of all, the imagery of Yelena stepping off the tower in the beginning and then also stepping into the void are basically the exact same.
Hmm.
S- Also,
Yes.
when in case you didn't realize, also when John Walker has his little traumatic moment when they first climb out of the bunker together and they finally
Hmm.
get to the top, he wakes up from his trance and he's standing in front of the hole as if he's going to take a step off. So it's almost this like extra layer which I thought that they were going to use over and which I thought was going to come back more was that you relive something so traumatic it almost like plays on this like suicidalness
Oh
of it
yeah.
all.
I mean, even when
Eh,
they're climbing up the thing, it's the four of them. It's like, don't look down, don't look down. It's like, you can't see the bottom. At least you could see the top, but it's like that's the thing. You can't see the bottom. It's a void now.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, everything's a void. Yeah, I think that's really cool.
I thought that even when like Julia Louis Dreyfus gets her little trauma moment, like I thought that maybe when she wakes up from her thing, like maybe now she's about to do something that like she can't take back kind of thing. I thought that they were gonna play with that a little bit more, just
Mhm.
to like really you like give you that like panicky feeling in your
Yeah.
chest. Um, and then what else? I had another shocking moment. Oh, I also love the moment when Century realized that he didn't even really need Valentina. That he was
Mhm.
like, no, why would I take answers from you? Like, I'm a god. I can do whatever I want. And then he has that moment where he could easily kill her. And I was like, first of all, during that whole scene, I was expecting someone to die. I thought that there was going to be another shocking death just because he was like, I don't want to hurt you guys. And I had just the strangest feeling. I was like, I think Bucky is about to like
I thought it would be
die
Bucky
right
too because
now.
he's also the last one standing. I was
Yeah.
like, because he's the last one to get up, and I'm like, he's toast. But his arm was the one who died.
Yeah. Yeah. That he just,
The
just severed his
dishwashered
arm from
arm.
him. Yeah.
Yeah. I will say about the void and like the imagery, the suicidal imagery. Oh shoot, I just lost my train of thought. No, no, it was
Oh
so good
no.
too. That's right. Keep
Oh.
talking. It'll come back to me. It'll come back to me.
Well, I was fully expecting someone to die. And then I thought it was going to be Bucky because I thought, they were just going to like kill him because, he's the one that we know the most. So it just would
Mhm.
like make sense for him to go. And then I also really thought when Century had uh Val in his little on her little chokehold that she could go in that moment too. You
Mhm.
just remember,
Yeah. I
do
was just
tell,
gonna
Bill.
say, I like how all of their flashbacks and stuff were not really married to the snap anymore. I think that might be
Yeah.
why the MCU has been halted a little bit because everything has
Mm,
been about Thanos' snap and recovering from that. I feel like
hmm.
Captain America: Brave New World was like the last of those movies to finally like wrap up what happened for the events of Infinity War Endgame. These were all
Yeah.
other things. Like this was about Yelena's childhood. This is about John Walker's marriage. This is about Valentina's childhood. Like I like that that's the direction they're going in again because I think that's what they need to focus on is what's the next thing coming, not what happened now. What is
Hmm.
2019 like 6 years ago? So I really do think it's one of those things where I think now we're finally moving forward,
Yeah.
and that was refreshing because I was worried it would just be like Yelena would go back and just look at like I thought we were going to get a lot of Natasha clips, and then like John Walker was going to get the clips of him in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and I
Mm.
like that because I read somewhere where that Kevin Feige was trying to say like I want people to be able to enjoy these movies without having to watch the other ones, and this movie is heightened if you watch the other ones. It's heightened if you watch the other ones, but
Yeah.
there's nothing that it directly calls back. Like you don't need to know that she lost her sister to really get what Yelena's going through in this movie because they make a good enough
Yeah.
job selling that she is depressed, and the flashbacks they show are a little girl that we've never met before. It's and I like that. I think it honestly works for the future of the MCU if all the like flashbacks and stuff are new flashbacks of things we've never seen before rather than just harking back to all the older things. Do you agree with that or no? Because I do feel like that's one of the strengths of this movie is that it doesn't feel like it's married too much. Like obviously, yes, Bucky is well known because of the previous films. That's why Mel
Yeah.
has like this big obsession with him. Whatever. Like we know
Yeah.
Yelena and Red Guardian are father and daughter, but again, like we don't need to see those movies to understand what they're going through in this movie. Kind of like Sentry. Like if you had told me Sentry was in a past movie and I had never seen this movie, any movies but this one, I'd be like, okay. But if you had told me he's an original character, like I think that's the thing is like all these characters, you
Yeah.
don't need to know their backstories to really fully understand the film and understand at least what the stakes of the film are. It heightens it, but it's not necessary. And I like that there was no flashback to the snap, no flashback to the blip, no flashback to like
Yeah.
the Black Widow movie or to Falcon and the Winter Soldier. They mentioned the fact that he killed an innocent guy. But again, that's something we don't even need to see because they say it. They said, you killed an innocent guy as Captain America.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? You're an asshole. And I love that
Yeah.
Bob's the one to deliver that. Bob's like, you're
Yeah.
an asshole. Yeah.
Honestly, I agree. I think that it's good that we're kind of distancing ourselves from the events of Infinity War and Endgame. Like, obviously, we can't fully ignore what happened there because it was like the biggest event to happen in the MCU thus far. Um, But I will say that this version of John Walker, I kind of really liked just because they made him just a little bit more of an asshole. They really leaned into this like tragicness of him
Right.
because now that we know that his family like left him and he doesn't have his wife or his son anymore, like it kind of made him an evil, like an even more like crummy version of John Walker, which is
Yeah.
better than him being a crummy guy but trying to like be the nice guy like no, I'm Captain America, I'm this great guy, don't
Right.
worry. Like no, he kind of like leans into it more. And I think even from the post credit scene like he's still going to be kind of this like heel in the group, you
Yeah.
know.
Well, he's an asshole just without the confidence now. Now he's just an asshole. you know?
Yeah.
Like back
Yeah.
then he had at least the confidence, but now like I love when he's like scrolling through all the articles about himself. Because that's the thing, even as
Yeah.
performers, we go through. Like you get a bad review. You know how many times I've gone back to look at our high school production of Fiddler on the Roof just to see if anyone's shit on my performance? It
Wait,
happens.
that's so
You
funny.
find obsessants and they don't. They love us. But it's one of those
Yeah.
things though where it's very real, you know, like I'm
Yeah.
about to take a contract where I'm definitely going to be parts of Instagram posts and people are going to be posting about me on Reddit. And I don't know if I'm ready for it, but it's one of those things where it changes you. And even if you're an asshole, at least then he had a confidence and cockiness and arrogance to hide it. Now he's just an asshole who's also fucking bummed and depressed and doesn't want to live anymore.
Right.
So it's a really cool dynamic. I really like the characterization in this film. I'm just thinking about it more. I honestly think it works so much better as a Thunderbolts film or a film on trauma or a Sentry film than it does a Avengers film. And I think that's my biggest problem
Mhm.
is you slap that name on the title and now it's like now you have to sell me the team of the MCU. Like it's almost like you did yourself a disservice by now putting this label on it. It's almost like when you're like seeing someone and you're really happy, but then once you call yourselves boyfriend girlfriend, it's like, oh shit, now there's pressure. Now I got to meet
Mhm.
your family.
Mhm.
Now I got to like, it becomes it's a commitment that now you have
But
to uphold, and it's intense.
But Dill, I think that's why they didn't market it as the new Avengers movie to start. I think that's why it's called the Thunderbolts, which
Mm.
is, can we talk about the name of Yelena's Pee Wee soccer team from when she was like 5 years old?
Well,
And I
that's where I
just
thought the
love,
asterisk was coming in. I thought that was going to be like asterisk named after the Pee Wee soccer. Like that was going to
yeah,
be the
yeah.
tagline, but it
And
wasn't.
they kept saying that it was like sponsored by something, and Red Guardian kept being like, it's not sponsored by blah 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 or something. So maybe it was like going to add that too, like
That's what I thought it
sponsored
was going to
by.
be. Yeah.
But it was just so two moments really made me laugh during this film. I'm sure more. No, sorry. Three moments really made
Okay.
me laugh during this
Uh-huh.
film. One was when whoever said it in the limo, when Alexei picks them up in the limo when they're walking through the desert, that one of them says Thunderbolts, and he gets so full of pride. He's like, "You named your new group after your Pee Wee soccer team." Like he's like he loves that, but he loves that moment. Then there's the moment where they break into what I think Val is working out of Avengers Tower. I think that's
Yeah.
what's happening, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So they break into
Harrowing.
Avengers
Yeah.
Tower and they're fighting because Alexi's sitting in the passenger seat with Bucky driving. He's like, okay, so what's the plan? And Bucky's like, the plan drives the truck into the wall. Alexei comes running out of the car saying, I like this plan. And I'm like, funny. See,
Yeah.
subtle enough not to I'm saying a line to get a laugh right now. It was just subtle
Mhm.
enough, a quick throwaway
And
bit.
it's not like joke. Stop. Look at the other character, and the other character goes, "I can't believe you just said that," because that's a
Right,
Marvel
right.
thing, like that I'm sick
Yeah,
of. It's like, no, just let him say it and go on.
yeah. And then the last moment that I want to talk about is when they're going through Bob's trauma in the void. They go through this scene where he's working as this like sign flippy guy where he's like trying to
The chicken.
advertise this like chicken shop. And so he's in this chicken suit, but he's going absolutely nuts. And Bob just screams, I was high on meth. I'm like, that is a line I didn't think I would ever hear in the MCU.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah. Yeah. No, yeah, I think the humor is done very tastefully in this. Like, could it have been
Yeah.
scaled back and been just as effective? Yes. I think if you push it anymore, it's a little too much. But I think because it's
Mm-hmm.
hard to do a movie that's about suicide and trauma, but also make it really fun, a fun romp tag team adventure. But they do teeter that balance really well, which is impressive. Because honestly, as I was watching it, I was like, I don't know how this is going to work once you bring Alexi into the mix. But honestly, I felt like he needed to kind of come into it too, because by then like Ghost and John Walker and Yelena and Bob, just the four of them were kind of bumming me out. So it was nice. And I knew Bucky wouldn't help make it livelier or funnier. So I was like, we need some sort of humor because it really is Red Guardian being the humor. Everyone else has like a drier, sarcastic sense to them, but I think Red Guardian is the most overtly funny, but it worked. I
Yeah.
think it was the right amount. And
Right.
he didn't start with the group. It took a little while to get back. And
Yes.
even the first scene we see of him, it's kind of tragic too, because like I think he washes his mouth out with soap. He brushes his teeth with
Yeah.
like dish soap.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Because he like gets the Cheeto dust or the Dorito dust off his fingers, and then he like wipes his like Cheeto Dorito orange mouth with the dish soap. Yeah.
Nope. Nope.
Um,
Yeah.
the last thing that I want to say about the film itself, and then I have a few things I want to say about the post
Post
credit
credits.
scenes that
Yeah,
we
we gotta talk
got.
about that. Yeah.
The last thing I want to say is that with going through Bob's trauma in the void, I thought that those moments could have lasted a little bit longer. I think we could have seen a little bit more things play out
Mhm.
to just make the final act a little bit more, I guess, grandiose. Is that the word?
Yeah, grandiose.
Grandiose, that's what I try to say.
Mhm.
Just because we to defeat this villain, it's not a big punch shootout,
It's a
thing.
hug.
It's a big group hug
Yeah.
to let Bob know that he's not alone anymore, which is like I
Which
love that message.
it's really impressive that we're not all rolling our eyes at that. Like, oh come
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
But really, like I think most situations, if you were to tell me that's how this ends, the big villain gets defeated by a hug, I'd be like, come
Yeah.
on. Yeah.
Yeah. But no, it worked. It landed.
Hmm. Hmm.
But see, we get earlier on in the film where Val is talking to Bob, like he wakes up in like the lab or wherever they are, and she's like, listen, I know everything you've been through, and I know you want to be better, and I know that you want to be seen as like something more, and like I can do all this for you. And she says like, I know about your addiction, I know about like your mom, I know about what your dad did. And so there's this like big mystery behind his like family dynamic. We do get a reveal between him and Yelena that, you know, his dad was very abusive towards his mom and to him. But I just thought that there could have been this moment where like he really like takes on like his this figure of his dad in the void, just to like really like get this like overpower, you know, overcoming moment of that, because really they encounter his dad in one room, and then John knocks him out in one punch, and then they move on to the chicken bit. And I just felt like these moments could have meant much more if we actually like lived through them. And I think this goes back to me wanting this film to just be a tad longer, just so these moments could breathe.
I agree. Cool. Do you want to get on to the post credits?
Let's do.
Yeah, let's talk about the first one because it's kind of just a comedic gag, but it involves the Wheaties box, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the first mid-credit scene we get is Alexei shopping in a supermarket, and he encounters a woman in the cereal aisle. He's trying to get her to buy the Wheaties box that he's on, because he's like, look, I'm on the box. Excuse me, I just burped mid-sentence.
I'm on the
box. Can you burp on command? That was impressive.
No, that was just my voice. I was going, box.
Oh, I thought you totally just like were able to do that.
Imagine.
I can't.
Oh, that'd be crazy.
He's like, look, it's me on the box. And then she like runs away because she's like freaked out about this guy trying to be like, buy my cereal. The end post-credit scene that we get is the new Avengers. All it looks like they maybe took over Avengers Tower. I think that's where their headquarters could be. So they come in talking about how they don't have a ton of credibility as the new Avengers. Like, people aren't really taking them seriously as the Avengers. And also that Sam Wilson might be forming his own team as Captain America. And now there's a little bit of, you know, a wedge between him and Bucky.
Yeah. Which
we
already had a wedge.
That's my question. That is my question to you. Do you think they are teasing a new Civil War?
They can't be, though, because Doomsday is coming. Like, I think it's going to be one of those things where if they spend all of Doomsday fighting each other,
right?
But I did just say the best Avengers movies are the ones that they're at odds. Maybe it's like the Act 1 conflict is that, and by the end of Doomsday, they will have finally gotten on board, because Secret Wars is essentially going to be, I'd assume, another Doctor Doom movie. Like, I don't think they're going to defeat Doom in Doomsday. So I like to believe it's the Infinity War for Secret Wars' Endgame. So in that sense, like, I really do hope, if this is going to be a conflict, it's resolved by the end of Doomsday, maybe. But yeah, I just always I found it interesting that like all the like main characters of the MCU are not part of the new Avengers. So it does make it feel a little temporary, like it's not going to last. But it is also the same conflict. It's Falcon and the Winter Soldier was a little bit of that too. So I'm just kind of like, I don't know if we need another Falcon Bucky fight, because also part of the only good things of the last movie was this talk between Sam and Bucky. So like, if you were to just like strip that away again, it's like, how many times are we going to do this revolving door? And honestly, I don't think this group can take them. Like, if it's Doctor Strange and Black Panther and fucking Shang-Chi, like, I'm sorry, Captain Marvel, the Hulk, Thor, like, they're not going to beat them. I'm sorry.
No.
They can't. Unless Sentry's the only one fighting him.
You're wrong.
Unless Sentry's the only one fighting him. And it seems like he's good being just Bob, because from what I heard, this is a scene from Doomsday. Like, this is the scene where Fantastic Four, because the Russos, I heard, filmed this scene literally like 3 weeks ago. Like, this was a scene that they filmed. So after they made that cast announcement, they filmed this post-credit scene for Thunderbolts with the Russos directing it. So the Russos directed the scene because I assume this is a scene from that movie. Kind of like how there's a scene of like when
Captain Marvel
Thor. Remember how they meet in the post-credit scene of Infinity War, right? Or no, is there a post-credit scene? Yeah. No, the post-credit scene of Infinity War is Nick Fury calling Captain Marvel. It's the post-credit scene of Captain Marvel.
Where she shows up and says, "Where's Fury?"
Yes, that is a scene that's also kind of in an Endgame. It's changed a little bit, but I think that's what it is. I think it's one of those situations where this is a scene from that. Like, that's going to be how the Fantastic Four is introduced. Now, my question is, because Fantastic Four takes place back in
1950.
yeah, like how did they get here? And I assume it's either through just knowing who's out in the galaxy. Maybe it has to do with Captain Marvel, Monica Rambeau, like the Marvel situation, or
Mm,
maybe it's we know Star Lord will return. Is this how we get Star Lord back in, even though he hasn't been
mm.
confirmed for Doomsday? Because Brie Larson also hasn't been confirmed for Doomsday. So
Yeah,
and neither has Tiana Paris. So
yeah.
I don't know, but I'm curious. What did you think of the Fantastic Four reveal?
I mean, it felt a little expected. I felt a little
Right,
silly not, being a little surprised by that one because it's like, yeah, that's the next film, obviously.
right,
They're going to tease it a little bit.
yeah,
Very exciting. I liked how they said, if you in case you missed it, it said like interdimensional like aircraft entering the atmosphere. So we
yeah,
know that they're coming probably from a different timeline, a different, you know, dimension, the same way Tiana Paris ended up in a different dimension at the end of the Marvels.
yeah,
So that's kind of exciting if we have this ability to jump back and
yeah.
forth between things.
I figured it was either Fantastic Four, but then I was like, that's too easy because that is the next
Mm,
movie. I'm like, at this point, we've seen all the trailers. It's not like we're like, oh my God, Fantastic Four is coming. I think if this movie had come out 2 years ago before we even knew Fantastic Four was coming, it would have been more mind blowing. But the fact that it's the next movie, I don't feel like it got the same effect that they thought it would have.
yeah.
But I also, for a split second, was like, shit, are we going to see like Doctor Doom's ship? Like, is it going to be like, is
Oh,
this where
yeah.
Doom comes in? But it wasn't. But I will
Yeah.
say, as two people who do loyally stick through the credits, did you read the credits?
I mean, I tried.
Did
They
you, when
go.
you got to the music section, did you notice that they said Fantastic Four theme, Michael Giacchino,
Oh no, I didn't catch that.
before it happened? So I was like, they haven't played that, so that's what they're gonna play. So I fully knew it was coming. Hmm.
Oh damn! No,
Yeah.
I
So
missed
Marvel, what you're gonna do now is
that.
if there's a post-credit scene, make another credits after to just be like Fantastic Four, Michael Giacchino, because
Yeah, yeah.
like
It
I don't know.
ruined it for you.
I mean, it didn't. If you had said that there was going to be a post-credit scene, I would have been like, okay, it's going to be either Fantastic Four or Doom related. So like, it
Yeah,
wasn't that big a shock, especially when they said spacecraft entering the atmosphere. I'm like, okay, it's Fantastic Four or it's Doom. So I
yeah.
don't know. And at this point, we've seen all the trailers, which we got an extended trailer. Kels, any thoughts on the extended trailer for it?
Yes. Well, first, two things I wanted to bring up before we talk about the Fantastic Four trailer. When
Mm.
they first enter the room in the post-credit scene, Yelena mentions also that there's another space issue that's happening that's apart from the spacecraft entering them because
Is that
they
maybe the Marvels or
maybe.
I don't know.
I don't know. These are the little things that I wanted to just address, just see if you
Mm,
had any theories. And
gotcha.
then also because the last time we saw Sam and Bucky, they did have this heart to heart in Captain America. Now Bucky's saying, "Oh, I had a conversation with Sam and it went poorly." So I'm like, are we going to see that? Or are we just assuming that like they just got into a fight and now this is where we're left? Because I'm like, are they getting into a fight? Are we seeing a brawl? Like what's
Because
going
also, like,
on?
Bucky's not the lead of this new Avengers either. Like, they're
Yeah.
the way the movie made it seem like it's Yelena, but at the
Yeah.
same time, also like Captain, like John Walker is here too. Could there be? Could that be a reason? Because John Walker's working with
Mm,
Bucky. I doubt
right.
Sam likes that.
Right. Right.
I
No,
would have thought that would have
100%.
been the driving force between it. I don't know. I think there's a lot of room for a cool setup, but um,
Yeah.
yeah,
And also, so one of the theories that I saw that I kind of think maybe instead of doing like a full blown like we're gonna fight in an airport in Germany civil war, like what if it's just a very like legal talkie based civil war that happens between them where they
mm,
don't actually ever like lay a hand on each other, but it's all just like very like so now if Sam Wilson is applying for trying to get the copyright for the Avengers and he's going through all this legal stuff, he's going to need a lawyer, no?
he is.
And now there are two lawyers in the MCU. So one side can have a lawyer and the other side can have a lawyer as well.
Yeah. Who do you think works for who? You think Daredevil would be
Hired
the
by Captain America?
you think so? And then She-Hulk would be the Thunderbolts guy? Girl?
Maybe.
Hmm.
Just because she works for Superhuman Rights Division. So she could be like, no, they are entitled to be the Avengers just as much as you are,
Hmm.
kind of position.
Hmm. But I feel like Daredevil has a tortured past in the way that like
No,
John
yeah, I
Walker
think
and Yelena is. I feel like he would
but
be on the Thunderbolt side.
I also think that maybe I just think that he's more of, like, a well-known, like, I'm a really good lawyer type of guy that, like, Sam Wilson would initially reach out to, and I think that having She-Hulk on the Thunderbolt side would kind of, like, bring a lightness, a funness that they desperately
Right.
need.
The only problem is
Yeah.
Hulk is probably more Team Sam.
Yeah,
So if
probably.
his cousin is the lawyer,
Even more
he'll
conflict,
be
even
like,
more drama.
I got a girl who could help you out.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
I'll ask my
What
cousin.
what a Mark Ruffalo impression,
I'll ask
hilarious.
my cousin to come talk to you. No, yeah, it's interesting. And the thing is, neither Charlie Cox nor Tatiana Maslany have been confirmed, and that's another thing too.
Right.
Like there, so Jeff Snyder, I will never buy what he says as gospel online, but he has like spoiled the rest of the cast list, but I don't buy it. But he's been like, yeah, no, this is gonna be like he's naming all these names that we're like probably expecting, like Brie Larson, Tatiana Maslany, not Charlie Cox though, and not Tom Holland. Those were the two big names that weren't on there. But it's like one of those things where he was like listing all these other characters that are probably that makes sense to be in it. But I'm not
Uh-huh.
gonna buy it until Marvel says it.
Mhm.
But yeah, it would be very interesting though. I think a Civil War type deal could be cool. It's just like you also have to introduce Doom. You also have to because like in the original Avengers, Thor and Iron Man fight, but it's like the first act, you know. So maybe it's
Yeah.
like that, you know. Maybe that's
Yeah.
what they do, and or maybe it's two groups trying to fight him. They both fail, and they realize they have to work together, and that's what Secret
Yeah.
Wars is. I don't
Right.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah. But what do you think of this Fantastic Four trailer?
So Fantastic Four trailer, I mean, I was already hyped to see it even with just like the teaser trailer. Now that we've gotten a full
Mhm.
length trailer, we've gotten to know a little bit more of like what's going on. One of the big reveals that happens in this trailer is that Susan Storm is actually pregnant.
Pregnant. Mhm.
So her and Reed Richards are expecting.
How does that work? If she turns invisible, does the baby stay visible, or would the baby be
You
invisible
know,
too?
I think
Because the baby's
because
not born yet, so
I think the fetus, because it's a part of her anatomy, also turns invisible when
right.
she
Because
gets invisible.
until you're born, you are not a full person yet. Just saying. We gotta keep
Right.
making sure people know that. Um,
Right. They need to know what side of history we're on.
yes. No, but yeah. Okay, cool. I was just fascinated by that. But yeah, what else did we learn in the trailer? Because I honestly
um,
I don't think I've seen the trailer in full except for once, and it wasn't at
well,
the movies because I got to the
we
movies a little late. I got there right as the IMAX thing was going. So,
God, I don't know her name. The girl from Ozark.
oh, Julia Garner, yes, Silver Surfer. That's right.
Yes. We got um yeah, a look of her as Silver Surfer,
Looks
which we
good.
hadn't seen before.
Cool, unique
Looks
take.
looks good. Looks like there's going to be a Johnny Storm moment where he goes after her and fails, and then that's kind of the catalyst for the rest of the film.
Yeah.
The moment that had my jaw on the floor, that I was like, "Oh shit, what's going to happen?" is the last frame of the trailer where it's a city sidewalk, and then you just see two huge boots
Yeah.
walk right through, and I'm like,
Galactus or something. Yeah.
"Yeah,
That is that the name of the character? Yeah, because I'm not a big Fantastic Four lore guy, but I'm very very intrigued by this. But yeah,
yeah,
I feel like it's hooked me. I'm ready to see it. I mean, I get to see it for
mm-hmm."
free because of how and where I work. And I get to see it probably early because of that. But
Oh
yeah, I'm
wow,
excited.
I flipped
Yeah,
right to
there
the
you go.
page with
There you go.
Galactus on it. How funny is that?
Yeah. But yeah, I'm excited. I love how like it seems like we're looking forward to Doom now because that's the thing. Once they told us Thanos and the Infinity Stones were going to be a thing, every movie felt like it was building to Infinity War, and then it happened. And
Mhm. Hold on, Dill, I can't hear you. No. 1 second. What I will say is that before Dill can finish his train excuse me, oh my god, I'm gassy today. Before Dill can finish his train of thought, is that the one qualm that I have is that I wish they released the Doomcast after these 2 movies had come out, because now we know who's making it out of these movies the same way that Dill knew that the Taskmaster wasn't going to be in Doomsday. Now we know who will be in Doomsday. So That
Yeah.
was my one qualm. I can hear
Can you
you
hear
now,
me?
Jill. Yeah.
Yeah, for some reason the audio is not coming through my mic, but it's okay because I can hear you. But yeah, I agree. I just heard what you said. Yeah, I agree. It's like now that we know who the Doomsday Cast is, like the fact that Fantastic Four is meeting up with this team is no surprise. The fact
Yeah.
that Taskmaster's alive or died was no surprise. I wish they had teased some of them, like tease Pedro and Vanessa, but the other two aren't in it, or like tease like Florence Pugh and Sebastian Stan, but no David Harbour. Is he going to make it out? You know what I mean? Wait
Yeah.
for the
Yeah.
second reveal because there are more cast members coming. That's inevitable at this point.
Yeah.
And they even said that. But I'm trying to think what else we have to say about anything. I think we've gotten pretty much everything covered, right? Do you want to give like
Yeah.
a final rating for this movie? I can get rid of the spoiler ban right there.
Wow. I'll do it live on Letterboxd right now because I didn't do my Letterboxd review because I was kind of waiting because I wanted to watch it again
Mm,
before we sat down and did this just because I had such a terrible audience.
mm,
I was so distracted by just like people making comments every now and again. There was a group of people that came in, talked for the first 5 minutes of like the first full scene with like Yelena on the building and was talking through all of it, and then they got up and left, and I was like, oh, thank God. But I'm like, also, you paid money to see this movie, what are you doing?
maybe they
And then for
didn't
the
pay
rest
though. Maybe they saw Minecraft and it snuck in.
of maybe. And then I had to just deal with like other people behind me, like every time something crazy happened they would go, oh shit, or like something,
Yeah.
and I was just
Did you
like,
see it? Not to give away town names. Did you see it in Town L or Town M?
Town M.
Yeah, that's why.
Yeah. I wanted to see it in Town L, but I was seeing it with a friend from work, and she lives closer to Town M,
Yeah.
so I had
No,
to
I
like
no,
compromise
it's
a
fair.
little.
You work right by Town M. But yeah,
Yeah.
it was very interesting. My
I
audience was not as disruptive, but I also saw it in an IMAX theater on a rainy day, the day my dog died. So it was a rough kind of experience just because I was like I was
yeah.
just so distracted by it, and I was also like sitting kind of toward the front because most IMAXs I've been to in Toronto are a little bit more just like big screens. They don't feel IMAXy in the way that like we've both been to like the AMC Lincoln Square. It didn't feel like that, but this IMAX I went to felt like that. It was huge, like the Lincoln Square. So row D was actually way closer than I thought it was because I saw Sinners in a different IMAX and I got to sit far away. And row E was not that close, but here row E was super close. So I want to see it
Mm,
again with a wider lens, with a better mindset. Also, I want to see it with some friends to just see their reactions to things because I didn't go
yeah.
with a group, and I feel like that emphasizes things too. But I'll say right now I'm at like a gentleman's 6, like out of 10. Like I thought it was really solid, like above average. If 5 is average, this was definitely a step above average. It didn't wow me, but I like a lot of the character work. I think on another go I will like it more. But I also think putting that label of what the real title is, now that we're not in spoiler territory, I'm not going to say it, but
Yeah.
that title does kind of set an expectation that I think this film wasn't. And I hate that they had to put that label on it because I feel like this movie was not about that. It was about other things. But I don't know. I think they could have done better with it, but it was solid. And I like that it was different.
Yeah. Yeah, me too, Dill. I'm giving it a solid 3.5 stars on Letterbox. If I could give it 3.75, I would. It's
Mm.
almost at that it's not quite a 4 star, but it's a little bit, I don't know, 3.5 seems like a little
You know what you
too
did?
little less for me.
As soon as you said that, Cinema Joe just logged it at a 3.5 stars. So look at that.
Me and Cinema Joe, we're like this. We're
Yeah, like see,
connected.
Cinema Joe, 3.5 stars right there. There you go.
I have to follow him.
Yeah, you do.
So
Um, cool.
I'm gonna
All right.
log that now.
Well, there she is. She logged it. She logged it. Isn't that crazy? How like, oh, and you even wrote something too. I heart Lewis Pullman. Wow, very impressed. That's social media working in the real time. See, we don't need AI. We can use our own brains and fingers. All right, Kels, we're gonna find you. What do you got to plug? Next week we're doing Daredevil episodes 4 through 6.
Yes.
So do not spoil it for us. We have no idea what happens. And
Yeah.
we're excited to
No
talk about it.
clue.
We posted our Daredevil 1 through 3 last week, so check that out. I'm gonna try to get the Daredevil episode. I'm trying to do a third episode in May, be naughty and cool. But if not,
Ooh.
it'll come out in June because we're doing 2 episodes a month. So we want to also make sure we can like fill the time while I'm getting settled on the cruise. So if you don't see Daredevil till next month, that's why. But yeah, Kels, anything else from you? Where can you find it?
You can find me on Letterboxd at Kelsey A. Kilp.
Yeah.
That's where I'm active most these days.
Cool. And once I'm on the boat, Kelsey, Zach, Matt, and Chad have been gracious and are gonna try to help the TikTok grow a little bit too. So we're thinking of some TikToks for that. I wanted her to record the first 10-minute reaction to Daredevil,
I know.
but
I'm
she had already seen
sorry.
it. But if I don't know, if I think of another movie that I'm like, ooh, I want your reaction for this, let me know. But I would also love like
Yeah.
maybe like find a niche, a specialty, maybe like rom-coms or some sort of genre that you can like do like a weekly rom-com check-in or a weekly this check-in or weekly that uh
Love.
or we keep going with our Avengers movie club or something and watch a movie from a different Avenger, like spin a wheel and it lands on Elizabeth Olsen. I'll watch an Elizabeth Olsen movie today. I don't know. I have a lot of ideas. We can brainstorm, but you'll see a lot of Kelsey on
Love.
the TikTok as well because I want to really get that bumping and grooving. But thank you so much. You can find me at Dylan_Randazzo. Again, the next few months, I'm going to be a little bit less present on the channel, but these guys are going to do a great job on TikTok, and also Kelsey and Matt with the Trivia League. And we're still going to be coming to you twice a month. So we're grateful for your companionship, for watching us for a whole hour and a half. A lot of discussion for a movie that we both had bad theatrical experiences for. But it didn't affect our love for the movie. Go see it. It's great. Be careful if you haven't seen it. The marketing will spoil it for you. But thank you so much. And Olga Kurylenko, give her a Best Supporting Actress nomination for that. She did a great job. We love our Taskmaster. All right, bye.